Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
That was perfect.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm excited. We are on interview 3 for PodMax. I have Todd Giannattasio in the house.
Nailed it.
Yes, I know. It's a name. And if you know Turmeric and Tequila, I'll probably listen to these casts years down the road and I'll be like, oh my God, can you read? Because I butcher names so bad even when I try. I think it's a function in my brain. So there's probably a good excuse. Anyways, Todd is the marketing pro. He has been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post. He's helped a variety of big brands increase sales, generate leads. He knows all things digital, and he's a people person, I want to say. You're pretty social, aren't you, Todd?
Well, thank you. You know, these days we have become very virtually social, but yeah, you know, I love people. I love connecting. I love creating communities and tribes, which is also why I love and am so drawn into the PodMax community.
Yeah, I think everybody has like their own little niche personality, and everybody's outspoken in their own way, whether it's like the art in the background, their actual voice, their message, something. It's an eclectic group, but there's like major common denominators. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, totally.
Excuse me.
And I have I have like, our strategy stuff up behind me on the wall, but then I also have like my 5-year-old's little business plan, and she drew like a picture that's a little off screen of the family. So like, it's a good mix of like business and family, work-life balance in the mix.
Yeah. Well, Turmeric and Tequila, we're here for all of it. It's just how you don't think they intersect, but they have to. And that just came off the keynote speaker. It was one of my major takeaways. I love the approach of like the non-selling situation, like just be you and let it sell itself. On that note, tell us about you. Give me some background on young Todd.
Sure. So today's Friday as we record this, and Monday is actually the 10-year anniversary of Tresnick Media, which is the agency that I started back in 2011. So very exciting.
Congrats.
Of course, like typical entrepreneur fashion, I have like nothing planned for it to celebrate or promote or anything. I'm like, oh, maybe this weekend I'll come up with something.
Sure.
But yeah, I started off out of college, corporate career, 4 or 5 years in the cubicle, and decided like, that wasn't the life I wanted to live. I really wanted to have more of a direct impact, have the work I was doing have more of a direct impact. Like I was doing digital communications and stuff like that in corporate, but you do something like that at, a global $100 billion company, like who knows if you're really making a difference anywhere. So I wanted to get closer to the action, right? And I wanted to start working with startups and small businesses and entrepreneurs so that we could really like put our foot down and make the car go.
That's amazing. Well, tell me like you started this 10 years ago. That's awesome. Congrats there. You don't need big celebration. Just get like the 10 balloons and do like the cliche post on Instagram and just do like 10, yay. And actually I meant to do that for my 100th episode, and then I didn't even do that. So I'm with you. We'll get there.
Same. Yeah, exactly.
What was for lots of entrepreneurs that listen to Turmeric and Tequila, and a lot of them have come from the corporate world. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but I went straight into the entrepreneurial space because I was a D1 athlete and I had enough like someone else running my life. Like my coach was great, but I just knew I got that early on. What was your step one breaking free from the corporate world and jumping into the entrepreneurial one?
So luckily for me, I kind of, my career was based on like the skill set that I built the business on, right? So digital marketing, building websites, kind of doing blogging before there was blogging, and content strategy and social media as it came out. And so my first move was, after I gave my 2-week notice, was I downloaded, like in Gmail, you can go in and like export every contact that's like ever sent or received an email from you. I don't know if they still let you do this.
I was gonna say that's probably illegal at this point, but yes.
But 10 years ago, right. Yeah. So 10 years ago, you could do this, past the statute of limitations, I think. And so I exported everybody that's ever interacted with my Gmail account. I uploaded it into a free MailChimp email marketing tool, sent out an email with the subject line, I quit my job today. And just basically told a story of like, my passion is in helping people get their message out and make an impact and really make a difference. And I wasn't getting that in the corporate world. I appreciated my time there, but here's what we're going to be doing at Tresnick Media. We're going to be helping entrepreneurs and small business owners get their presence online so that they can increase their impact and income and get more strategic around how they market their business. And, that went out to all my family, friends, and any random spammer who got my email address at the time. And so that was kind of how I put my flag in the sand, so to speak, and started getting those first, first tier referral projects, building small websites for small businesses, and then got into business networking, doing that stuff, meeting people, taking on bigger projects, meeting bigger companies, gaining more skills, making bigger impact, having the case studies and proof behind it. And then just continuously still to this day, honing and improving the process that we build and implement for people. And now it's become something that's much more, kind of productized and systematized, where it's, if you want to really increase your impact, your reach, get your message out, start building your audience, building your list, and building an engaged community around your brand. We don't have to sit down and spend 6 months figuring out how you should do that. We already know how you should do it. So follow along with our system and we can make it happen.
I think that's really a phenomenal advice. I think in every multi-level marketing or really simple marketing situations, they always say lean on your initial sphere of influence, your family, friends, exactly. Whatever. So if you don't have access to an email list from your former corporate job, right. I always think that's a big step one. And you're leading with, what is now popular, humanizing the brand of your story. So I think that's the best thing you can do. So oftentimes, and I don't know if you see this with your companies, over 10 years, I started Caroline's, my consulting company, about 6 years ago, but have been, again, entrepreneurial lacrosse company for just about 20 years. And I've seen the industry change from polished corporate, this is how you do it, to now this huge amount of transparency, primarily because of social media and the internet. And you're letting the human breathe through the business more than ever. Have you seen that evolution for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've been saying that for a few years, and it's for a few reasons. It's funny that this shift where it used to be where small businesses wanted to try and pretend to look big, right? They wanted to look like big companies, and they weren't taking advantage of their strength, which was the human side of the business, right? So that's something that connects with people. People are going to resonate when they see another human and when they hear stories and see you as you are. And that's, we've actually ran tests 2 years ago where we had a client who we did they did a speech on stage at an event. We had a $5,000 video production of that speech cut up into animated graphics and all that kind of cool looking stuff. And we ran those videos. And then we also just had them direct to webcam, like you and I are doing right now, basically saying the same stuff. And the direct to camera communication was 5 times better performance than the highly polished production stuff, so people want connection, and that's how you connect with them.
I've almost even seen big companies that the small ones back in the day were trying to look big. Now the big companies are trying to look small. And it's they're taking expensive footage and roughing it up. It's dirtying your jeans that are $200. And so now they're cool because they're mudded and ripped and stylish. But it's just so funny to see the evolution. But the conversation, in my opinion, is the consumer. The consumer has evolved, and they see it. Loyalty is different. Totally. Has your conversation or consultation completely shifted because of this consumer evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we actually do now is kind of the old marketing agency model was you hire an agency and then they do a bunch of research and create content and messages for you, or some agencies will subcontract out a writer to then do research, right? And then the process becomes very bloated, first of all, because then the agency and the freelancer are going back and forth, and then the agency goes to the client, and then they go back and forth. And to create one piece of content is 3 months long, when in reality, it could have been what we're doing right now, a half-hour recorded Zoom conversation. And so we've transitioned into that. And so over the last 6 months, maybe a little longer, especially now that everyone's more comfortable being on Zoom, all of our content is, rather than us creating it, we're doing collaborative content creation with our clients where, yes, we figure out what the customer's needs are, what our messaging positioning is going to be, and make an outline for our content strategy. But then it's me hopping on with clients and just having a casual conversation where I'm guiding it along, like what questions we want them to be talking about. But it's just like we're doing now, right? Like, and those are the kind of things. And then we take those clips and those become the ads, and the full length videos become things that people sign up for as like trainings, instead of this like, oh, I'll sign up for a webinar that's going to have a pitch at the end of it. Like, we're creating these like really great, casual, informative, and empowering conversations. And it's so much faster and easier because there's no back and forth. It's like, you don't have to review this and give us feedback because it literally was you saying it, right?
Yeah.
And then, having them on the video is what makes that connection to people, and then makes them more likely to want to engage with the brand.
Very well said. I often say, like, before, old school was you're creating a story, you're doing all this, and the 3-month timeline to get one post out is hilarious because you literally have like 3 seconds now, and if you miss it, you're like 5 years behind. Like 3 months is so funny. But we always say, like, we're creative professionals, but really at this point we're not even creating, we're just revealing what's already there in a strategic way.
Yeah. And I love what you have on your website, and I'm going to butcher this, so please correct me. But it was the third column on the right that said how the world has changed, and there are these social feeds filled with content, and a lot of it is BS and a lot of it is noise, and we can either let it be filled with that, or we can come in and try to shine some light and bring actual value into the news feeds so that it becomes a valuable experience for people. And that really resonated with me. And I loved seeing that as part of your mission too.
Well, thank you. I received that compliment because that's deeply important to me. That's really coming from the marketing branding space. There's so many smoke and mirrors, and it's not that it's all bad. It's just some people have gotten so good at making up a story because that's what they've done for 30 years. Now it's changed, and our kiddos, if we're consuming all this media in whatever platform, that's their reality. So I think as marketers, we have this responsibility to step through and be like, okay, this is cluttered noise. Let's start telling the truth, because there are so many varsity humans doing really great things. And maybe they don't want to be influencers. Maybe they don't want to make billions of dollars and be everywhere, but their story can really change the trajectory of our young people in a really casual way. That's why I say graceful. We don't have to blast through the wall. But
and the unfortunate reality is, it doesn't matter how good your product is, if you don't get in front of people and get them to enroll in your vision and buy from you, then you can't make a change in those people's lives, right? Like, that's where it's an old cliche, but where selling is serving. And if you don't do what it takes to attract your customers the right way, someone else is going to get those customers, and they're not going to have the positive impact that you could have had.
Absolutely. It doesn't feel like selling if you're just talking about something you love and you believe in. It's not
exactly.
It's not putting your hand to somebody's neck and saying, sign here because you got to pay your rent. It's like, I'm really genuinely here to supplement your life with something I believe in. But
totally.
Well, I see the varsity marketing experience, but I want to know about like the human side. Tell me about, like, Todd, how you grew up. Like, how did your life influence what your marketing situation now?
Yeah. So, you said earlier, I come off as a people person. And I think that's always been like the core, is that I've always been very sociable. My parents are very sociable people. So even though I'm an only child, and maybe because I was an only child, we always were with other families, with other people, hanging out. I was always playing all different sports. Varsity bowler 4 years in high school.
Wow.
But also, played basketball, hockey, baseball, every sport growing up. So like in elementary school, it was like, you have to play everything. And then if you want to stop after 6th grade, like, then you can. And then that's when it narrowed down to just like a couple things. So there was always that part of like being part of the teams and communities and being around people and just like having fun together. And then in high school, I actually was one day going to meet my at the time girlfriend in between classes, and she wasn't there. Like, you have these like in between certain periods, you see certain people, right? And she wasn't where we usually saw each other, and her friend was there, and I was like, oh, where's she? She says, oh, she's trying out for that TV show. And I was like, what TV show? And they're like, oh yeah, there's like some TV show here. They're like interviewing kids to be on it. And I'm like, so you don't have to go to class if you do that? And she's like, no, you don't. I'm like, all right, where is it? Boom. So I go, and like purely just to get out of class, I went to this like audition, so to speak. And it was for an after school talk show that had like 2 hosts and a group of kids that rotated every day. And so for the audition, it was like 6 kids, and they would give a topic, and then they have to rotate the mic, everyone give an answer. And the question was something like, they were going to extend the school year. They were going to add more time to the school year. And so, of course, all these kids who are trying to kiss ass and get onto the show. Oh, well, it would be great to be in school more, because then we could learn, blah, blah, blah. Right. After the third person said this, and remember, I'm not there to get on the show. Right. I'm just there because I get out of class. I'm like, I intercept the microphone in between people. And I'm like, look, if the argument here is that we're going to add more months to the school year because you're saying September is a wash and June is a wash because no one really does anything, then I think we need to cut the school year down, and let's just start school in October and end it in May instead of making it longer, because that's ridiculous. I was like, and that's what I got to say about that, right? And so, and then, it all ends and I'm walking out, and then one of the producers kind of tapped my arm and she's like, I think you're going to be getting a call back. Right. And so I did. And I ended up on this talk show I'm in Jersey. The show was in New York City. It was a studio, and it was on the Metro channel in the tri-state. And it was every day after school. I went in about once a week. And it was just different, hot topics that, kids would talk about. And then eventually kind of graduated from just that talk show scenario. And then they started sending me out, and I was doing press junkets, interviewing Jon Favreau before a movie was released, and I did a bunch of those types of things, and actually ended up in 17 magazine because they interviewed 5 of the kids that were on the show with something. And that was all when I was 16 years old. And it's funny how everything comes around, because I never was in TV or media after that. But now today's world is all creating media and communications. And so it kind of always had gone back to me, this underlying theme of just communication and being authentic and being true to yourself and just speaking your mind. And that's exactly what works today in business. And so that's kind of a little bit of a relevant story to what I'm doing today and what young Todd was like.
Wow. That's amazing that happened. That life lesson happened so young at 16, which no offense, 16-year-olds, but very little at 16. And
Sure.
I'm 40. I don't even know that I know a lot now.
I was going to say I'm 37. I don't know anything.
The more you learn, you're like, shit, I know nothing. Yeah. But to have that lesson and that arrow in the forest pointing you in the right direction so early on is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't live by it every day for the last 20 years, but yeah, it's definitely something that I look back on, and it's almost something that was surreal, where I never even thought about that period of my life for 15 years. It almost washed away. And I was so once in a while I'd be like, shoot, I was in 17 magazine at some point. And that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how things in life, the older you get, the more you can look back and you're like, wow, that's so funny that it all kind of line up on time. But just to have that validation and your authenticity prove paying off immediately is such a great point, I think, to lean back on in, all the time, but particularly in 2021, where as consultants, you kind of have to live it to really be a great consultant. And you lived it at 16.
Yeah. And I think it's the same thing that it makes things easy. Is funny because, I always say, I think the two things that hold entrepreneurs back are sophistication bias and novelty bias. And sophistication bias is this thing we have in our brain that makes us want to make things hard, right? So if something appears easy, we think, well, that's probably not effective because it's easy, so I need to overcomplicate it. Of course, these are subconscious beliefs. They're not things we do on purpose. But when I talk to people about how they should create content and put it out and serve their audience, they think that sounds very heavy. But then when I say, do clients ever email you and ask you a question? Yeah. How long does it take you to hit reply and send them an answer? It's 5 minutes. It's well, instead of hitting reply and sending it via email, hit reply, copy that, and then paste it in LinkedIn and paste it on Facebook. Change it so it doesn't have their name. But that's the same exact thing. Just answer questions and be helpful to people, right? The best marketing strategy is to be helpful. And so when you can make that mindset shift for your business, that okay, if I just show up and have I'm already having these conversations privately, but how can I transition and leverage them into something that becomes public and shows the value and service to my target audience? That's when you're going to start increasing your visibility. And I always say activity equals visibility equals opportunity, right? And so the more you put out and the more you serve, the more value you put out into the world. You said it before, I think, like, our vibe attracts our tribe. And so when you put that stuff out and when you are your authentic self, you will attract the right people back to you.
Yes. And so much of this is strategy, as you're saying, and you can like implement little tricks and trade, but really you're like creating a mindset and then shifting a culture. So it's a massive responsibility. You need to be very clear on like your ethos and your core values, because the power is in it. And it can almost be labeled as manipulative, but it's more like coaching and guiding if your heart space is pure. But that's
Exactly.
like, you got to be a really like mature, evolved human. Have you taken time where you like have had some like breakthroughs, and you've done like some self work or some like mindset stuff? Like, how did that clarity happen for you?
Man, constantly. I'm always going through stuff. I'm huge on personal and professional development. I spend a lot of money and time basically, I remember the first summer after college, even before I was an entrepreneur, I was reading so many books on business and marketing and communications. And I was like, man, I think I've taught myself more in the last 3 months than I learned in the classroom in school. Right. Yeah. And so, and not to knock college, because I do believe in it for a lot of other reasons, but not the same reasons that a lot of people will think. But it's always been something I've invested in, and more so over the last year. Really, like I've always spent the time acquiring the skills and leveling up my expertise in my craft. And in 10 years in business, the most growth that we've had has been in the last couple of months in the two programs that I've been hyper focused on. Number one was investing in a transformational coaching program, which is all about rewiring my subconscious identity, finding these limiting beliefs and these stories that are holding me back and breaking through those things. And then you go through what's called like disintegration anxiety, because you're becoming a different person and you're letting go of this old person. And that makes you sad. And you're like, well, I'm doing this work to be happy, but I feel depressed. Like, what's happening here? And it's because you're evolving and leaving things behind. And that was number one. And number two was hiring an outsourced CFO, who's also part of the PodMax community now, Adam Rundle and the Clever Profit guys. I can't say enough about them. But that created these two very interesting dynamics that, of course, you have to have the skills and master your craft to serve your clients. But as an entrepreneur and business owner, these two things, the CFO work has created a clarity that I did not have before in terms of what the numbers really need to look like for different areas of your business, and creating goals that are not just like kind of like airy-ish type of goals, but like, oh, this is what tangible things look like. And in order for me to build that business to increase to the impact that I want to have, I have to hit these kind of numbers. And I've come to a realization this year that like, I've always lived like, we're 10 years in, and I've always made this excuse that we're a boutique agency and there's only a couple of us and we have fun and we only work with really fun clients. So we only work with a couple clients at a time. And I've had my eyes open through this work that like, I'm playing so small. And that's such a story that I told myself for, any number of reasons, that I accepted that story. And then all of a sudden, when I was like, well, everybody says, oh, well, I want to have a big impact and I want to change the world in this way. And I want to do these things. And then it's like, all right, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to need a lot more money. If you want to have that kind of impact, you're going to need money to do it. And you can't work 100% for free all the time, or at these types of prices, or with only this amount of employees. And it's like, holy crap. Like I'm thinking so small. And so, just over the 10 years of how much I've spent in my skills, these two things of really investing in my own subconscious identity and getting clarity in what it takes to build the business properly, like those two things have created the most growth that we've had in the last 10 years.
It's so crazy because you don't think of that. Just like in sports, like you don't think about all the time you're in the weight room. You just like think about when you're making the goal and you win the championship. But all the shitty days when you're in the training room and you're doing all this and you're like talking to your coach or unpacking whatever, like it's hard. And culturally, again, at least I didn't grow up with this being like, how do you feel? What do you really like? What are your core values? What story are you telling yourself? We're so powerful with our minds and rethinking our story. And we don't even believe it's a story. We just create our reality and then believe it. It's
totally.
So you really,
and a lot of it is we accept a reality that's been projected onto us. And so even if you did very like quick work on like, what are my core values? If you don't really like do like, that's almost like core values. If you say, what are your core values? That's almost like being on the field during a game. But the actual work that helps you create core values is doing all these different types of exercises and figuring out like, why do you have certain stories and beliefs? And then you uncover like, oh, that when you first asked me what my core values were and I said they were these things, like those are things that like are generally accepted in society as like positive core values, but like that's kind of not the priority that I really feel. And so doing so many layers of work is super important. And, it obviously comes over time. You have to have all different types of experiences to change your perspectives and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely more than just like being on the field for game day. It's all the work you do every day leading up to that.
Oh, it's so much. You see with like our great athletes, and that's always my lens because I'm a former athlete, but like the true greats, Tom Brady or whatever, whoever your favorite is, there's just so much that goes in like true commitment to getting better.
Yeah.
As you're saying, like a lot of things are like projected on us as young humans, our parents. I think some of these conversations are really new and they're not necessarily like just out in the open, but was there some of that like generational narrative you carried through to your own life? And like, now do you operate a little bit different than your family?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And this took a lot of the inner work and journaling and stuff to figure this out. I grew up in like a middle class, kind of upper middle class-ish family. Like I never needed anything, right? Like we were always covered, like everything was fine, like from that. And my dad worked a corporate job, like since he was like 21, right? Like he graduated, got a job, and like that was it. He had two jobs his whole life. And the one he just retired from, he had for 33 years. Wow. He worked for Nestle, which is like one of the 4 largest companies in the world. And my mom is like kind of a combination at this point of like an interior designer, and like she helps plan estate sales, but she's also super spiritual. So there's like this whole like, she does all this like energy cleansing work on your house kind of stuff. And like, she's always been into that. And so, but like, she's had this mindset. She's always had this, like, didn't have a job, quote unquote, and like didn't really make money, quote unquote, because she got paid in other ways, she would say, or like she'd barter stuff and whatever. And so I had that part of me. So I had like the good and bad of both of these worlds, where it was like, like that, there were a lot of great things that came out of that, but then that created this story for me that like, I shouldn't make money. And then there's also my dad, who worked super hard in corporate America for 30 years. So then I'm like, I'm seeing both of these things where I'm like, okay, I have to work super hard and I shouldn't make money. I shouldn't make money if I want to make a difference. And that was literally something that I just discovered. Obviously, there's way more nuances to it, but I just discovered about myself like 2 months ago. And that was a huge breakthrough for me when I kind of dumped this all out into a notebook and then kind of like repositioned it. And now when these kind of things happen, when you do that inner work, you can see them and you can stop them, right? Like you catch yourself going into these thought patterns or these beliefs, and you're like, no, not anymore. I recognize that happening. That's a huge thing. And then something else that Zach Knight, who I thought he was one of the keynotes here at PodMax today, talking about leadership stuff. And before everybody got out of the breakout room, he and I were talking about the book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And he was talking about that in his keynote about, really allowing yourself to feel valuable and accept that you're worthy of things and to truly love yourself. And, it seems like he and I were kind of on like a similar journey with that book, because I read that a couple months ago. And now I've created this like automatic loop where whenever I'm in silence, walking around, like, even if it's just like, if I'm going downstairs to get a snack or whatever it is, like anytime I'm kind of quiet, the back of my brain automatically starts just this loop of, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And that's been like totally shifting my emotions to just like feel like, just like my average level of happiness being higher all the time. Some days it's up, some days it's down, but like my default state is this much more abundant feeling, value feeling, worthiness, that changes things. And before I forget, I wrote this down because I want to go back to it. You were talking before about like the champion mindset and stuff like that. And people talk about Michael Jordan as like one of the greatest champions, right? And like when you watch The Last Dance, which I'm assuming you did,
absolutely.
You know, over the years we've all heard the stories of what a terrible teammate Michael was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was such a jerk to everyone, and it sounds like he's like a terrible person. And then even when you watch the show, you're like, man, this guy's a real like you wouldn't want to hang out with this guy. But what's so interesting is when all of his teammates were being interviewed. I'm getting chills right now.
Mm-hmm.
None of them said he was a jerk. They all said it made me better. Like none of them were mad at him for what he did. They were like, he made us all better. This was, I needed this. And now we're all champions because of it. You know, like no one is like, oh, I hate that guy. He's such a jerk. Like,
right. Well, I think they recognize the sacrifice that he even had in his own world. Like that might not even have been his personal space or his personality genuinely, but he knew that that's what it was going to take to be the one that holds everybody accountable and to carry that weight as a leader. That's unprecedented.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
and today go ahead. Today happens to be the anniversary of the flu game, right? Where Jordan where he had the food poisoning.
Oh, food. Yes.
Yeah. And so I saw a post, I think it's ESPN or somebody put it on Instagram, and like someone asked Scottie Pippen, like, what was it like? How did you feel having to carry Michael during the game? And he said, it was easy. He's been carrying me for 11 years.
Yes. Well, he was quoted at one point being like, how do you play sick? He's like, are you kidding me? I play better. He's like, I know I have to focus harder and step into the ring in a different mentality. He's like, I usually play better when I'm sick. And whenever I was sick, because I was my number throughout college was 23. Like I was a fan early on, and like, 90s kid, Jordan was the jam. And just watched everything he did. And every time I was sick or injured or whatever, I was like, Jordan played better than this opportunity to shine. So, as your family,
have you ever seen the game? Sorry. Have you ever seen the movie He Got Game?
I think so. Yeah.
It's with, so Ray Allen and Denzel Washington.
Oh my God. This is like way early 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like 98, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
And Ray Allen's like this superstar high school player. He's basically was like LeBron James, but before LeBron James. And Denzel Washington was his dad, and he was a total asshole to him, like made him train all the time. And there's this one scene where they're in the park, and it's like 1 a.m. and he's like 10 years old, right? Like the kid is like 10 years old, and he's like, Dad, I don't want to do this. Why are you making me do this? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, right now there's only 3 people training: you, me, and Michael Jordan. And it was just like, knowing that, and like you said, like when it's sick, like, oh, I'm sick, this is when Jordan played better. Or like even times like now, like this week we had some issues with some of the stuff that was going on with the business, and normally that would really get me down and send me into a little bit of a spiral. And I told myself, like, this is what separates the pros. Everybody, all weak and mediocre people drop off here. This is where they hit the wall and they stop and they give up. This is where the pros, this is where the varsity athletes, this is where you step up and make things happen and turn things around. Right. And so like when you have that mentality, like when you hit a wall and you think, this is where my competition drops off, then you keep going.
Yep. And that piece right there is the varsity piece, because it can't be trained. You either get it or you don't, and you want it. Yeah. And I always say, like, I haven't labeled it correctly, but kind of my law of twos. It's, if you're just like a 2, and this isn't going to sound right, but just, you'll follow me when I explain it. If you're a 2, you're just an average person. You want average things. You're good with 2 kids, mediocre house, mediocre, but you're good. Like your mindset is chill. You're crazy varsity like us. You want the world and and great things are happening, big connections. And with that is great responsibility and stress and money and this and it's really not a better or worse. I know it sounds like that, but it's just who you are.
Yeah, it's just 2 different people. Yep.
Yeah, and the drive, and the world needs both.
Exactly. It's like Tim Grover, he was Michael Jordan's trainer. A lot of Jordan talk today, but he was Michael Jordan's trainer, and he's got a new book just came out, Winning. I can't wait to read it. But his other book is Relentless. Have you read that before?
I have not read it, but I think I actually have it on my shelf. Yeah, I've like
it's great. But he talks about them as cleaners, and I forget all the levels, but like Michael Jordan was a cleaner, Kobe Bryant is a cleaner. Like they do it all, like that's it. Like they are top level. He's like, and there's people who are these aren't the words he uses, I forget, but like there's people who are good, there's people who are great, there's people who are closers, and then there's people who are cleaners, and like it's the do whatever it takes, no matter what, sacrifice everything in the gym all night, right? Like so that you can make it through. Like if you're in double overtime and you got the final shot, you're not tired, right? And that only comes from doing the work before the game.
Absolutely. And what's so beautiful is that comes full circle to like marketing or whatever. It's mindset. And then it's really wanting to learn, move forward. And as you better yourself, you learn you're your first client. You learn how to better yourself. So then in turn, you can be of service to your clients in basketball, in marketing, in whatever. But that's a constant journey. Has your family looked back at what you're doing now and been like, oh, that's cool? Because like I was kind of the first one to break out and do, I'm the oldest of four, but like, life coaching and core values training and blah, blah, blah. My family's like, what? And so it's kind of been a ripple effect all the way around.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the boat where like my parents, like, they're like, oh, we're so happy you're doing well. But like, they couldn't tell you what I do, like that.
Well, that's also true. Yeah. They don't, they're like my family is super pumped that like my $100,000 degree that because I was only on scholarship for 2 years and was out of state and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're podcasting? Oh, okay. Like, and I was actually a comm major, ironically enough. And the only reason I was a comm major, well, I was business, but my lacrosse schedule, I missed like 3 practices a week for my classes. So I just switched my major, and ironically it worked out. But it's funny. Yeah. They don't get it. I think I'm excited if I just have enough for them to like question a little bit and be like, what? Okay. That's it. Like even a little pure like perspective that we brought in, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like I said, my mom is kind of the one who introduced me into like the spiritual self-development stuff. Like even when I was in high school, like there's an old book series that I never hear people talk about anymore, but it's called Conversations with God.
Okay.
And I read it when I was like 14 years old, and it's not like a religious book whatsoever. It's like very much more about like how the universe works and spiritual connections and things like that. And like the premise of it, supposedly true, is that this guy, Neil Donald Walsh, I think is his name, was like homeless, dead, broke, like worst of the worst case scenarios. And like one day he takes out like a letter and he starts writing like a hate letter to God about his life. Right. And then all of a sudden his hand like magically starts writing back, and it became like supposedly true story. And then like part of the conversation too, it's a 3-book series, and it's like, people aren't going to believe this is real. And it's like, even if it isn't real, isn't this stuff really insightful anyway? And it's like, okay, all right. So take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But so I was introduced to that when I was like a teenager. Not that I was always like super curious and into like philosophy and those kind of things. And so when we do bring it up, and my wife is very much into this stuff too. She actually, the coaching program I'm in now, she did in the fall. So it's not like we don't get like funny looks if we bring it up, like, cause it's something that everyone's at least somewhat familiar with, but it's funny. We don't really get into deep conversations about it. My wife and I do, and it's great. I love having a partner that is like on this same journey.
For long term, you kind of have to. I mean, there's a few things I've learned in life, and that's definitely one. And it kind of just like fosters your thought process, because it's a lot of FaceTime, especially during COVID. And so if you're not like having that like intellectual stimulation, it's probably not going to be a thing. But that's amazing that you were exposed to that early on. Shout out to mom, because that I think even that exposure, and I always say God, universe, or Madonna on my podcast, because it doesn't really matter what you believe. It's just like the hierarchy and the believing in something bigger, and then personal, how you believe, like the inner shines outwards, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same stuff. It's just rebranded. So
exactly. Totally. I tend to use the universe as the word I use, but
likewise. How much of this conversation bleeds into your business? Because I would assume once you're dialed in and you're in alignment with stuff, it's probably coming up organically, because that's your vibes bringing that in.
For sure. Yeah. It's super interesting, especially now over the last few months. I've been much more, I don't want to say open like I was closed about it before, but it's just much more naturally part of the conversations that I'm having. And I'm actually thinking about shifting our brand positioning, because our most recent client is actually like a health and wellness holistic. She has like a whole training company, and obviously trying to go virtual now. And, it's her, and she has 3 coaches. She never did any like real marketing, right? Like she's always like similar, like what I said, like boutique, like they did enough to make ends meet. And like, they were happy because they were serving and helping people for a cheap price. And she invested in herself and in her business, which I'm super proud of. And she hired us like 4 months ago, and we started doing a lot of stuff. And, the work that we're doing has not directly, like, you couldn't put dots between like, oh, they posted this and then this client came in the door. But because she invested in herself and because we're doing this work, the motion that we're creating is turning into a magnet for her. And she just had May was her best month, like twice as good as her second best month ever in like 4 years.
Wow.
And I had a conversation with her about it, like a casual conversation outside of like a status meeting or whatever, where I was like, I know that there's not a direct correlation here between like the ads that we're running and the 9 new clients that just came in this week. But I got to tell you, like, I believe that because you invested in yourself and you told the universe, like, I'm here and I'm serious about my business and I'm ready to grow, and we're putting all this energy out, like, that's what's attracting all these new people in. And she like totally agreed with it. And so I'm starting to think about like, how can I position the agency that way, where it's like, yes, we're going to do all the right strategies and systems. And like, we have proven, like, I can show you the numbers that we've generated for people over the last 10 years. But the reality is, like, you need to just get in motion in the right direction here, get your own messaging, get your own values ready, and come from a place of service and add value to the marketplace. And whether or not it comes directly from what we're doing here, you will start to attract more abundance into your business.
It's human first, always. It doesn't matter how you break it down.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because everything is ROI and measures and measurements and analytics. And I've struggled with this with my consulting agency so much, because they want to see like this. I built out, 75 plus ambassador programs, and we're spending $1 million plus, whatever. And they're like, well, how do you show success? I'm like, are you serious? Do you not see this? Do you not see the shift in things? But can I show like this person tracked to this sale and this was the conversion here? And you really can't in marketing. And even people say you can, it's kind of still bullshit.
Yeah.
Like we all know how to like make
we
it look
do.
like
And I'll tell you what, we're very much performance driven agency. And like over the last 18 months, we do have very like, I'm what we call, I say we're direct response content marketing. So we like to put out valuable content that does have direct calls to action and move people through. And so we are positioned to measure everything that's measurable. But I'm here to tell you, quote unquote, that like, yes, that's how we're building it. But it's this straight line is going to be a magnet for things to come from all other different directions. So even though they don't come through this straight line, this is the magnet that's attracting things.
Yes. And I think the stuff that is measurable is kind of like not thinking small, but it's the baseline. Like that's when you're just doing all the shiny, polished, strategic. And so it's just, I'm just so glad that we are where we are in our world, because things are shifting and people like us are right on time. So I'm so excited. You have my full support in shifting the business towards human first. Yeah. Or energy or I've been very specific on my clients. I say mission-driven businesses only, and it's cost me some dollars, but I don't care because we got to be in alignment, or it's my gifts are a waste, and I'm probably wasting their time too.
And we do the same thing specifically since we shifted into this collaborative content creation, because if you're not a mission-driven, passionate expert in your business, then you won't do well having a conversation with me. Like if you are passionate, it's going to shine through and it'll work, right? Yes. The energy that's in those conversations. But I always say, these are my modern marketing principles that we based everything on. And I tell this to everybody that I talk to before we get into even a sales conversation, so they know this is how we roll. And it's that: number 1, customer centric; number 2, value first; number 3, education based; number 4 is humanized, personalized, conversational messaging; and number 5, direct calls to action, so that there's always a clear next step. It's not next step to buy something, but at least a next step to take, so that when you have their attention, you can get them engaged. If it's leave a comment, share this with someone, click here to visit the website, sign up for something free, whatever it is, like just always try to take advantage of having their attention, to have a call to action to get them to do something.
I love that. We could go on so long. I think those I'll say core values, business core values are amazing. Principles. Anything else you want to share with us about the business that you want to put out to the universe and or the TNT audience?
Practicing what I preach. I do put out a lot of free stuff. One, I have a podcast with called On Air Brands. It's every Wednesday at noon on Facebook, facebook.com/onairbrands. And I have a bunch of free resources at thegrowthsuite.com/free to help you with getting intentional about your marketing strategy and stuff like that. So anybody who's listening, who's interested in those modern marketing principles and getting your message out there so you can increase your impact, like get free stuff there. Check out the show every week. We're always putting out free stuff, and I'm just here to serve and put out good vibes to the universe, because I know it'll come back to me multiplied.
100%. And I like to ask every guest, this is a new thing, but turmeric is my chill, tequila is my thrill. What's your chill and your thrill?
Man, chill is, well, I don't, this might be both, but my kids,
Sure.
sometimes that's the chill. Sometimes
The
it's the
tequila
thrill.
might ensue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
How many kids do you have?
2, we have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh, yeah. You got like young humans running around.
Yeah.
Tequila and a sippy cup might be in order at some point.
Yeah.
That's for you, by the way,
days,
not the kids.
Yeah. Some days the liquor cabinet, we have glass doors on the cabinet, and it's like that scotch is looking pretty good right about now.
It's looking at me. I love it. All right, we got 2 minutes. Where do we find you?
thegrowthsuite.com/free is the best place for people to go get free stuff. Connect with me there.
Perfect. Are you on Instagram and everything else?
Yep. Instagram is at Growth Suite. And if you catch us early enough, you'll see posts from today's event.
Boom. You guys are on it. It's pretty amazing how fast things are moving and how things are growing, but I'm super glad you guys are in the mix with the social and moral conscious leading the way.
Yeah, totally. And just before we leave, let's get a quick selfie for us.
Yeah, I tried to take 1 minute things.
There we go.
Good.
Let's try to get that out.
I love it. Tag me. Well, Todd, I appreciate the time. I hope we cross paths soon again. If you need anything coming from Colorado, holla at your girl.
I will for sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Todd.
I've got some ideas to share with you if you want later about, ways to help you guys with your stuff. And
we'd welcome that conversation.
Yeah. So it's just, again, communication and as Gary even said, and when we were talking in the 40s, is relationships, valuing the relationships and the connections, and not being afraid to share and just help others. And all of a sudden everybody's prospering and, helping change the world.
Speaking of changing the world, Rachel, we'll throw it to you. You today, so you completed 3 sessions. 1, you were interviewed. 2, you were the host and interviewed. Talk to me about that process. How was interviewing going for you?
Interviewing was great. I just got off with Shelly, and we really vibed. She was speaking my language. We just, I like just talking to people. So we just had a great conversation, and so it was very natural and easy. And then in the morning, I met with Mitch. Same thing. I mean, Mitch is just, you could sit and listen to him just go off. I mean, he has story after story after story. I was like, really? I mean, I could talk to him all day. That was great. And then in the morning, I was with Mario and really just talking about the importance of taking care of your vocal instrument and making sure that you are speaking from the right place. If you're someone who is talking all day long, to making sure that you take care of yourself, and just some of my experiences on the voice actor side. So overall, it's been really fun. I got a taste of both worlds, so it was fun.
So you're muted. Yeah. Okay.
If you haven't already scheduled time with Rachel to get to know her and us to get to know you a little bit more, can we give the link to her schedule? Sorry, Rachel, we're blowing up your calendar.
Yeah, no, blow it up. That's good.
And then also, if you haven't signed up for our mixer, please check that out so that you get alerted, and also save the space for us on every Friday at 11 Eastern. That's a wonderful way to continue the conversations, check in with each other, make sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do so that we all grow together.
Excellent. Walt, talk to us, man. You've been spending the day. How's it feeling?
Oh, man, it is awesome. I just got out of the room with Larry Roberts, and man, we were cutting it up pretty good.
Is this your first exposure to Larry Love?
Yes. And we made arrangements to connect and keep this conversation going.
Arrangements. I love it.
Yeah, I think we could have talked till next Friday, but that was a lot of fun. I'm having a great time today. I am super happy to be part of this. I've connected with some other people as well, and I'll continue to connect with them offline. And Rachel, I'll be blowing you up as well.
Heck yeah, take it.
Thanks.
Sarish, let's move over to you. That's Dr. Sarish, right? You're an orthopedic surgeon, which cannot be lost, but that is not how you even lead. I love it. How's your day going?
Oh, it's going great. I just had an amazing conversation with Kirsten from the IntelliKey podcast. And yeah, it's just amazing how different each of my interviews were today. I mean, you know, we laughed, we cried, you know, we did everything in between in all three of them. So they were great. Yeah, I really appreciate this opportunity.
Great. What do you appreciate most about it? Like, if you could just sum it up, like, what's the feels? What are you feeling? What are you getting out of it as of now?
I think really being able to exercise like telling my story and like being vulnerable and like having these like real conversations about you know, really like my life, but also about, you know, purpose and, you know, all of these different things that, you know, I think we can all relate to. So yeah, I think just kind of exercising that ability to really hone my story and hone my pitch, and but then also really kind of digging deeper into that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you come through. And again, I hope that this is the start of really something cool. We could always cross paths and do something in each other's lives.
Totally,
Cool.
man. I just realized something that I just have. I'm sure you probably get this all the time, but has anyone told you look like Sebastian Maniscalco?
Every
like,
Podmax, in fact.
Who does
Every
he
Podmax.
remind me of? I was like, who does he remind me of? And I finally got it.
So
People-
I'm going out with my wife and she's looking at me.
That's pretty
I
good.
love it. I love it.
Well, I had to watch him. I'm like, Netflix, play Sebastian. That didn't work. No, but thank you.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment.
It is what it is. Well, thank you. Yeah, I've gotten it on occasion. You know what's crazy? I used to get Ben Stiller quite a bit.
Ah, I see that too a little bit.
Jerry still.
Okay.
Jerry's you. I oughta.
His hands are massive.
Well, cool. Alex, who do you get? Alex Sanfilippo, because the only Alex in the room. I'm looking at you, my man. Who do you get told you look like every now and again?
You know, I was just thinking about this because I agree with everything, like the two options people gave for you. I have never, anytime someone like plays this game, like your celebrity look like, everyone's like, huh, Alex doesn't look like any celebrities. So I don't think I have any future in any sort of movies or TV. So sorry, everybody.
Sorry. How's your day going though? Talk to me about that more importantly.
My day's been great. I just finished up all three. That was the last one. Just Mike Hamm, great host, asked some really killer questions. Definitely had a good time. And then we went back and did like the session that didn't work out this morning just from technical difficulties with who was that one with? That was with Beth. And yeah, but it was all three were awesome. Like really great hosts. I got asked some questions I don't usually get asked from all three of them, which is what I really like, because like last year I was on 100 different podcasts. So after a while, they kind of can get not repetitive. I don't want to say that, but like you understand the questions that are going to come up. But all three of them asked different questions and ones I'm not used to hearing. So like, great job. Like some really good hosts here.
It's awesome to hear. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes before we officially begin the keynote session. You guys know who it's going to be. He's in the room. It's going to be Steve Sims. I'm sure he'll be showing his face in just a minute, but we got a few extra minutes before that begins. So with that, Corey and Ron, Corey Carter, Ron Cool, actually Ron's last name. We had this conversation the first time he came through. Ron Cool, spelled exactly how it sounds. Gentlemen, how's the day?
Fantastic as usual. And it kind of just program the next one in 6 weeks or whatever, August time we'll be there, because it's amazing how many great people are in this. I think someone said it earlier, you get the best of the best, right? Like it's when you don't know people, like we didn't know Adam at all. Like when you don't know him, but you still can jive, you still immediately can have these connections. And I just love it. So thank you, Josh. Thank you, Eric. And the Podmax fam, love it. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
It is something that we look forward to, that we would not miss until you say, hey, we would like you not to come back.
Speaking of, I just wanted to take this opportunity to shout out to and throw massive love towards our team here, starting off with the man and the maestro behind the mic and the magic with Rob. and the mustache. Of course, we always got to give credit to Rob. He makes all of this happen, and he's playing fantastic music for us as we experience this new sort of Podmax. It is new to us, incorporating music all throughout, which we're loving so far. I hope you guys are loving it as well. Also, big shout out to Sophie, who has been everything for us behind the scenes in making this magic all happen and appear like it's effortless, but it's very difficult herding cats. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for providing safety and guidance for everyone here in the community. Also wanted to shout out to Rachel, because if it wasn't for her, talent wouldn't be the unique beast that it is. So Rachel, thank you so much for all the love, devotion each and every day as you pour love into the community, one person and one mic at a time. And of course, this one, and I don't want to get emotional on this one, but Meredith, I like to call you in my head, and this is the first time I'm saying this on stage and won't be the last.
Oh boy.
She is a locomotive that crushes everything in her path. And I mean that in a different sense of the word. Locomotive meaning she's crazy motivated, and that we just grab on and we hold, because she's taking us to a next level. And I just want to thank you for all you do. It's insane the amount of work you've done in such a short amount of time. It's actually quite shocking. We're all shell-shocked. Josh and I are shell-shocked, but we're here along for the ride, and we're so happy to have you on board with us. Truly blessed to have you in our lives. And then, of course, I'm going to thank this man right here. I mean, there are no words really to describe Josh and everything he does and all the value he provides and everything he does for the community each and every day, even when he's asleep. The guy is a force to be reckoned with. So thank you. I love you, brother, very much. So if I missed anyone, there's the team here too, the extended team with Amber and Todd and Larry and everybody who has loved and supported us throughout all of this and now creating content with us. Thank you. And Rocky too.
Rocky's part of the team as well.
Everyone.
And Eric. You forgot yourself, Eric. Eric is our guiding star for the entire thing. He has the vision. He's amazing.
And thank you for your service.
And thank you for your service.
Meredith, if Eric called you a train, what would you call Eric?
Is this a trick question?
It's like it.
That's just the next question I would ask on a podcast.
There you go, Mitch.
Eric, yeah, I will think about it, but I can tell you this. Eric is really the glue that holds the community together and the team together. I have never met anyone who feels so deeply about people constantly. He likened me to, a train, because I'm like, people's feelings, okay, get out of my way. Like, I'm just like, let's just do this. Let's get it done. And Eric is like, well, Meredith, maybe we have to put this in perspective of like them. How do they feel? Let's get everybody together. So I feel like we're an amazing team together, because we take both the culture and productivity and we just smash it together. And that's our vision, to change the world one mic at a time. And that's where it all comes together.
Love it.
There you go. No better segue than into the top of the hour. And we're going to bring on our 3 p.m. Eastern keynote. Many in the room I know already know him. It is Steve Sims. Show yourself, kind sir. I mean, does it get better with this song?
It was too deep, I can't get over the emotion of this move.
Are you making fun, Mr. Sims?
If I could, I would.
But you can't, so you won't.
Nah,
this is incredible. What do you think of the song you're coming on to?
It's pretty good. Better than Britney Spears, so I'll take it.
We had a meeting of, okay, Steve Sims needs a song, and we came up collectively with this. It was a 3-week process, just so you know. It was not like, okay, let's check.
It took you 3 weeks for that.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have mentioned that. Maybe you should have just said, hey, before we came on, we just spun a wheel and that came up.
I wish it was that easy.
It's Steve Sims, ladies and gentlemen. Off the top of your head, do you have a song that you love to wake up to, walk onto stage to, live your life by?
Yeah, I have three that I'm a great believer in never move by accident. So everything you do should be choreographed and constructed. So depending on the crowd, I have three. The usual one that I walk on a stage with is the intro of Bad to the Bone. You know, so that's usually the one. The other one is Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. Okay,
good too.
That's always that's a great intro. And the other one is I've got Britney Spears. So if I'm going into like some, it's just kind of like the beginning of that.
Oh my goodness, baby. You're not kidding.
So those are the three things that I usually like to work on, depending on who the crowd is.
I say we got pretty close with We're Not Going to Take It and Welcome to the Jungle. If you have a theme song in mind for you, or you've used them on stage, please throw it in the chat here. I'm very curious. Mine is Kanye West's Power. If anybody knows that song, it's rocket fuel for me when I'm running.
I think you need to do it. I think anyone that does anything by accident's a freaking idiot. And also you can have a fantastic song like Welcome to the Jungle is a great song, but I don't want to play the whole thing. But the beginning bit, that gets, bearing in mind your intro is never going to be more than 20 seconds. So you could have a really crap song that's got a 20-second piece of dynamite in it, and that's setting the tone. So the two things, one, I have never, ever gone onto stage with an introduction. I have a sizzle reel, and I always dictate to anybody that puts me on stage, hey, I don't know how to explain him, so let's let this do it for, and I have a video that plays. Nice. Video ends, one of those three tunes come on, and I go on. So as I say, I never move by accident. Everything is to the point, moves the needle, and is constructed.
So let's get into it, man.
I think we already are.
This plays right into, I want to give everybody a primer on what we know and love about Steve and why they should know and love him as we do. I mean, you guys are in for a ride. I mean, Steve doesn't pull punches. I do see the softer side of Steve because this is, I've interviewed him several times here. I've been blessed to spend time with you over the past few months. But yeah, if you've heard of bluefishing or you don't know, you're going to find out what it is. But he's the man that created that. He's the man that created Bluefish, which is this internationally, there you go, famous brand that creates once in a lifetime experiences for the rich and famous. We like to call him.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.